Have you ever thought about your future and wondered, who will take care of me when I'm older? If your immediate answer was my children, this video might completely change your perspective. Get ready to discover why depending on your children in old age could be the biggest mistake of your life. Imagine this. You've worked hard all your life, raised your children with love, and now you expect them to care for you in your old age. It sounds logical, right? But the reality can be very different. Many parents assume that their children will be their safety net in old age, without considering the consequences this may have for everyone involved. The truth is that depending on your children in old age can be a serious mistake with unexpected consequences. It can affect your relationship with them, your self-esteem, and even your health. But why is something that seems so natural so risky? Before we begin, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. Let's get started. On this journey of discovery, we come across a surprising reality. Did you know that 40% of older adults who depend on their children experience depression? This statistic reveals just the tip of the iceberg of what we call the invisible burden. But what's behind this alarming number? The answer leads us into an emotional labyrinth that affects both parents and children. Imagine for a moment that you are that son or daughter. You've started your own family, you have a demanding job, and suddenly you become the primary caregiver for your parents. It sounds like a recipe for stress, right? And you're not wrong. Recent studies have shown that caregiving families experience significant financial and emotional stress. It's like trying to juggle too many plates at once. At some point, something is bound to fall. But here's the unexpected twist. The emotional burden often outweighs the financial one. As the psychologist Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. In the case of dependency in old age, this transformation isn't always positive. Take the case of Mrs. Amber, a 75-year-old woman who decided to move in with her daughter after becoming widowed. At first, it seemed like the perfect solution. But over time, Mrs. Amber began to feel like a burden, which affected her emotional well-being and her relationship with her family. "I felt like an intruder in my own home," she confessed in a recent interview. And she's not alone. Manuel, a 70-year-old man, experienced something similar. When his children started intervening in all his decisions, from what to eat to what clothes to wear, Manuel felt like he was losing control of his life. "It's like I'm suddenly a child again, but without the fun of being one," he remarked with a sad smile. These cases bring us to a crucial question. Are we really helping our parents by making them dependent on us? Surprisingly, the answer could be no. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "Part of the cure is the desire to be cured." In the context of aging, we might adapt that to, part of a dignified old age is the desire to maintain autonomy. When parents become completely dependent on their children, they often lose that sense of purpose and autonomy that is so critical to mental well-being. But not all is dark on the horizon. There are ways to navigate these turbulent waters without sinking the family ship. The key lies in planning and communication. Imagine you're preparing for a long trip. You wouldn't leave without a map, provisions, and an emergency plan, right? Well, old age is the longest journey we'll embark on. And like any adventure, it requires preparation. Healthcare and financial planning are like the GPS and fuel for this journey. They allow you to keep control of your route and ensure you can reach your destination without getting stranded along the way. But what about the emotional baggage? This is where open communication with your children comes into play. Setting clear expectations and healthy boundaries from the start can prevent a lot of stress down the road. Speaking of emotional baggage, have you ever wondered why family suitcases seem to get heavier over time? The answer lies in a generational shift that no one saw coming. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about elder care. Imagine for a moment that you're looking through a family photo album. The images of your grandparents show large families living under the same roof. Now, look at more recent photos. Do you notice the difference? Families are smaller and more spread out. This isn't just a change in the pictures, it's a reflection of a profound social transformation. In the last 50 years, our family structures have done a 180-degree turn. We no longer live in those multi-generational homes where Grandpa told stories by the fireplace. Now it's more likely that Grandpa is telling those stories via video call from another city or even another country. Sociologist Robert Putnam, in his book Bowling Alone, gives us a clue about this phenomenon. According to him, modern families are less cohesive due to mobility and social fragmentation. It's as if we've changed the family game board without updating the rules. But what does this mean for caring for our elderly? Well, the expectations of family support we had before might be as realistic as expecting your dog to help you with your taxes. Fun to imagine, but not very practical. Job mobility is another key factor in this equation. It used to be common for generations to live in the same city, even in the same neighborhood. Now, adult children often move away for work, leaving miles of distance between them and their parents. It's as if modern life has put an ocean between generations. And speaking of oceans, remember when Marco Polo crossed half the world for trade? Well, now our children cross borders with the same ease, but in search of job opportunities. This makes the idea of caring for elderly parents a logistical challenge worthy of a three-dimensional puzzle. But it's not all bad news. This shift also gives us the opportunity to redefine what it means to care for our loved ones. Maybe it's no longer about being physically present all the time, but rather about finding creative ways to stay connected and support each other. As the Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nothing is more admirable than seeing a person who masters their own destiny." In today's context, this could mean taking control of our future by planning our old age in a way that doesn't solely rely on our children. So the next time you think about your future, remember, the world has changed, and with it, so have our options. The key is to adapt, plan, and most importantly, maintain open communication with our loved ones. After all, family love knows no distance, but it does require new strategies in this modern world. Have you ever wondered why so many older parents feel disappointed by their children? The answer might surprise you and completely change your perspective on family caregiving. Get ready for a shocking revelation. 70% of parents expect their children to take care of them in old age, but only 40% of children plan to do so. Where's the disconnect? This discrepancy is like the elephant in the room that no one wants to acknowledge. Imagine you're planning a vacation with your family. You're thinking of a relaxing beach trip while your kids are dreaming of a mountain adventure. If no one talks about their expectations, what do you think will happen? You'll probably end up camping in the middle of nowhere, everyone frustrated and wondering how you got there. Well, this is exactly what happens with expectations around elder care. The generational gap in the perception of family responsibility is as wide as the Grand Canyon. While many parents believe their children are obligated to care for them as a sacred duty, modern children often see this expectation as a heavy burden that interferes with their own lives and goals. It's like we're speaking two different languages without realizing it. Psychologist Dr. Maria Fernandez explains, "Unspoken expectations are like ticking time bombs in family relationships. When they explode, they can cause irreparable damage." And they do explode. The story of Mrs. Amber is a clear example. She moved in with her daughter, expecting harmonious living, but ended up feeling like an intruder in her own home. "It's like I traded my house for a gilded cage," she confessed bitterly, but it's not all drama and tears. Sometimes these intergenerational misunderstandings can be downright hilarious, like the case of Mr. Ramon, who insisted that his son teach him how to use the internets to look for girlfriends. His poor son didn't know whether to laugh or cry when his father asked for help creating a Tinder profile at 75. "Dad, wouldn't you rather I teach you how to use WhatsApp to talk to your grandkids?" he suggested, trying not to laugh. Philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "The greatest cause of unhappiness is the inability of people to sit quietly in a room." In the family context, we could adapt it to, most family conflicts arise from the inability to sit down and calmly talk about expectations. So, how can we close this expectation gap before it turns into a chasm? The key is open and honest communication. Don't wait for a crisis to talk about these issues. Start the conversation while there's still time to plan and adjust expectations. Imagine you're building a bridge between generations. Every conversation is a brick you add to that structure. At first, it might feel uncomfortable or even unnecessary, but over time, that bridge will become your lifeline. But what happens when that bridge has a toll? Independence in old age comes with a price, and we're not just talking about money. Are you ready to discover how much it really costs and why it might be the best investment of your life? Imagine you're in a supermarket called Happy Old Age. In the independence aisle, you find products like health, housing, and long-term care. But when you get to the checkout, you realize the total is higher than expected. Sound familiar? You're not alone. The cost of living independently in old age can be as surprising as finding a dinosaur in your backyard. According to recent studies, an older person can spend between 70% and 80% of their income just on housing and healthcare. It's like life is saying, you wanted independence? Here's the bill. But before you panic and start considering moving into a cave, take a deep breath. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few needs. And he was absolutely right. Mrs. Amber, our 75-year-old friend, learned this lesson the hard way. After moving in with her daughter and feeling like an intruder in her own home, she decided to regain her independence. At first, the numbers scared me, she admits. But then I realized that the freedom to make my own decisions is priceless. And here's the unexpected twist. Although independence may seem costly at first glance, it often turns out to be a smarter, long-term investment. Why? Because investing in your autonomy is like buying shares in You Incorporated. The dividend is better mental and emotional health. Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, a gerontologist, puts it this way: older adults who maintain their independence tend to have a better quality of life and experience less depression. It's as if independence is a superfood for the soul. But how do we make this investment without going bankrupt? This is where financial planning comes into play. It's like following a recipe. You need the right ingredients and to follow the steps correctly. First, start by reviewing your savings and investments. Do you have an emergency fund? If not, it's time to start one. Think of it as your financial umbrella for life's rainy days. Second, consider affordable housing options. Did you know there are senior living communities that offer services and amenities at reasonable prices? It's like living in a resort, but without having to mortgage your soul. Third, don't underestimate the power of good health insurance and long-term care. It's like having a shield against surprise medical bills. And trust me, in old age, medical surprises are as common as telemarketing offers. But beyond the numbers, true wealth is found in quality of life. Mr. Manuel, our 70-year-old friend who felt like a child without the fun when living with his kids, now lives on his own and is happier than ever. I can eat ice cream at midnight if I want, he says with a mischievous smile. That freedom is priceless. Independence in old age is not just about money. It's about dignity and having control over your own life. As psychologist Abraham Maslow once said, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing. So, what will you decide to do today to secure your independence tomorrow? Before continuing with the video, if you're enjoying it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with the bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you enjoy this kind of content as much as I do, comment, I love these videos. Also, let me know what you'd like to see in upcoming videos. I read all your comments. Let's keep learning and improving our lives together. Have you ever considered that planning your old age is like playing chess with time? Every move counts, but do you know what the master move is that could ensure your victory? Imagine for a moment that your life is a tree. Youth is the roots, adulthood the trunk, and old age. Well, old age is those branches stretching towards the sky. Now, when do you think is the best time to ensure those branches are strong and full? If you thought from the beginning, bingo, you've hit the mark. As the philosopher Seneca would say, life is like a play. It doesn't matter how long it lasts, but how well it's performed. And believe me, to make the last act memorable, you need a good script. That script, my friend, is called planning. But don't worry, we're not talking about turning into a financial expert overnight. It's more like learning how to cook. You start with simple recipes, and before you know it, you're preparing dishes worthy of a Michelin star chef. The first ingredient in this recipe for a tasty old age is savings. Yes, I know, it sounds about as exciting as watching grass grow, but it's the foundation of everything. Start by setting aside a small percentage of your income each month. It's like planting a seed. At first you won't see much, but with time and constant care, it will grow more than you can imagine. Now, where to plant that seed? This is where investments come into play. No, we're not talking about playing financial roulette with your savings. Think more about options like investment funds or retirement plans. It's like choosing the right ground for your tree. With the proper soil, it will grow strong and sturdy. Financial advisor Juan Perez explains it brilliantly. Investing for retirement is like packing a suitcase for a long trip. You can't take everything, so you choose carefully what really matters. And what really matters? Diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, or as my grandma used to say, don't bet everything on one horse. But planning goes beyond money. Remember when we talked about Mrs. Amber and her experience living with her daughter? Well, part of good planning is thinking about where and how you want to live. A smaller house, a senior living community. Or maybe you prefer to stay where you are and adapt it to your future needs. There's no right answer, just the one that's best for you. Speaking of right answers, did you know that writing a will is one of the most valuable gifts you can leave your family? Yes, it sounds a bit morbid, but think of it as leaving clear instructions for when you're no longer steering the ship. You'll avoid family arguments and ensure that your wishes are fulfilled. It's like being the director of your own movie, even after the curtain falls. Another crucial aspect is discussing your medical wishes. I know it's as pleasant as a trip to the dentist, but it's necessary. Clarifying what treatments you would accept or refuse can save your family from a mountain of emotional stress during difficult times. It's like leaving a treasure map, but in this case, the treasure is everyone's peace of mind. Remember, planning is not a sign of weakness, but of personal power. As the philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, you must be like a rock against which all the waves break. Your plan is that rock, steady in the face of life's uncertainties. And don't forget, health is the best investment you can make. Without it, everything else loses value. So include healthy habits in your plan starting now. It's like planting a garden. If you care for it constantly, you'll have a bountiful harvest when you need it most. Speaking of abundant harvests, have you ever thought about cultivating something even more valuable than health? Imagine a support network that blooms over time but doesn't depend on your DNA. Is it possible to create a family without blood ties for your old age? It turns out, yes, you can choose your own family for old age. No, we're not talking about late adoption or quick marriages. We're talking about something much more exciting and flexible: alternative support networks. Picture a community where your neighbors become your best friends, where you share experiences, laughter, and, why not, a game of bingo here and there. This is exactly what senior living communities and co-housing projects offer. It's like living in a permanent resort, but with people who really matter to you. The concept of chosen families is quickly gaining ground. As sociologist Bella DePaulo once said, the most meaningful connections in our lives don't always come from our biological family. And she was absolutely right. These new, non-traditional support networks are proving to be an endless source of companionship, joy, and most importantly, dignity in old age. Take the case of Mrs. Amber, our friend who felt like an intruder in her daughter's house. After moving to a senior living community, her life took a 180-degree turn. It's like I've discovered a new youth, she laughs. Now I have a book club, yoga classes, and even a theater group. Who would have thought that at 75 I'd be playing Juliet? But it's not all fun and games. These communities also offer crucial support during tough times. Dr. Robert Waldinger, director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development, puts it perfectly. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. And these support networks are just that. Meaningful relationships that help us navigate the ups and downs of life. Regular social interaction in these communities not only combats loneliness, but can also improve cognitive health. It's like a gym for the brain, but way more fun. Who needs crosswords when you can have a stimulating conversation about the latest book in your reading group? And let's not forget the romantic aspect. Yes, you read that right. Love doesn't have an expiration date. Mr. Antonio, a charming 80-year-old gentleman, found the love of his life in a community club. I thought that part of my life was over, he confesses with a sparkle in his eyes. But here I am, going on dates like a teenager. My grandson even asked me for advice the other day. These stories remind us that it's never too late to forge new connections. As philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "The only way to have a friend is to be one." And in these communities, the opportunities to be a friend are endless. But what if the idea of moving to a community doesn't appeal to you? Don't worry. There are other ways to build your support network. Volunteer groups, hobby clubs, even social media can be excellent starting points. The important thing is to take that first step. Remember, diversifying your relationships in old age is just as important as diversifying your investment portfolio. Don't put all your emotional capital into one person or group. Expand your circle, cultivate new friendships, and you'll see how your life enriches in ways you never imagined. Can you imagine having a stimulating conversation with a virtual assistant or monitoring your health with a smartwatch? The technological revolution is transforming aging in ways we never imagined. And no, we're not talking about science fiction, but a reality that is increasingly present in the lives of older adults. Technology has become a powerful ally in maintaining independence and improving the quality of life in old age. From apps that remind us to take our medication to devices that monitor our health in real time, the possibilities seem endless. As futurist Ray Kurzweil once said, technology is the great equalizer, and it is empowering individuals to do what only large organizations could do before. But how does this translate into the daily lives of older adults? Imagine Mrs. Amber using a voice assistant to schedule her medical appointments or turn on the lights in her house. Or Mr. Manuel monitoring his blood pressure with a smart watch and sharing the results directly with his doctor. Technology not only makes tasks easier, but it also provides a sense of control and autonomy. And it's not just about health. Technology is also revolutionizing the way older adults connect with the world. Video calls, for example, have shortened distances and strengthened family bonds. As psychologist Abraham Maslow once said, human beings need to feel connected, to give and receive affection. And technology is making it possible for that connection to transcend physical barriers. But here's the really interesting part. Technology is not only improving the lives of older adults, but it's also changing how we perceive aging. Do you remember when we thought old age was synonymous with technological disconnection? Well, get ready to be surprised. A recent study showed that technology use among older adults can significantly reduce social isolation and improve emotional well-being. It's as if each like on Facebook or each video call with grandchildren were a small dose of happiness. And speaking of doses of happiness, did you know there are apps specifically designed to stimulate memory and cognitive skills in older adults? It's like a gym for the brain, but without the need to leave the house. But it's not all rosy in this technological paradise. As philosopher Erich Fromm once said, modern man is alienated from himself, from his fellow men, and from nature. And it's true, technology misused can lead to isolation. The key is finding a balance between the digital world and the real world, and this is where the human aspect comes into play. Technology should be a complement, not a substitute for personal interactions. As psychologist Daniel Goleman reminds us, empathy and social skills are 5 times more important than IQ in determining professional and personal success. And this applies in old age too. Now get ready for a good laugh. Do you remember Mr. Manuel, our 70-year-old friend? Well, it turns out he's become a TikTok celebrity. Yes, you read that right. With his dance videos and life advice, he's won over thousands of young people. I never thought that at my age I'd be trending, as the kids say, he laughs. But here I am, showing a new generation that life doesn't end at 60. Mr. Manuel's story reminds us that age is just a number, and that technology can be a powerful tool for breaking stereotypes and building bridges between generations. As writer Mark Twain once said, age is a matter of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Speaking of breaking stereotypes, did you know there's a skill many consider a weakness, but in reality, it's one of the greatest strengths you can develop? Imagine for a moment that your life is like a play. You've been the protagonist for decades, making decisions, overcoming obstacles, and reaping successes. But now, in the final act, you find yourself at a crossroads. Should you keep acting alone or allow others to share the stage with you? The Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, "Man is by nature a social animal." And he was right, especially when we talk about aging with dignity. The key lies in understanding the difference between dependence and interdependence. Dependence is like being trapped in quicksand. The more you resist, the deeper you sink. Interdependence, on the other hand, is like dancing a tango. It takes two to create something beautiful. Psychologist Abraham Maslow expressed it perfectly. The satisfaction of the need for belonging is a prerequisite for self-actualization. But how can we ask for help without feeling like a burden? The answer lies in the art of assertive communication. Imagine you're in a restaurant and need the salt. You wouldn't stay silent, hoping someone reads your mind, would you? The same applies in daily life. Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, an expert in aging psychology, suggests using the desk method to ask for help effectively. Describe the situation, express how you feel, suggest changes, communicate the positive consequences. For example, instead of saying, "You never help me," you could say, "When I have to do all the house chores alone." Describe, "I feel overwhelmed and sad." Express, "I'd like us to divide the tasks." Suggest. That way, we'd both have more time to enjoy together. Consequences. And let's not forget the power of gratitude. As writer William Arthur Ward once said, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. Thanking others for their help not only strengthens bonds, but it also makes people more likely to help you again in the future. But be careful. Asking for help doesn't mean giving up your autonomy. It's more like having a co-pilot on a long trip. You're still behind the wheel, but you have someone helping you navigate and making the journey more enjoyable. Dr. Maria Fernandez, a psychologist specializing in family relationships, explains it this way. Maintaining healthy relationships in old age involves a delicate balance between independence and interdependence. It's like walking a tightrope. It takes practice, but once you master it, it's liberating. And here's the interesting part. Recent studies have shown that people who know how to ask for help effectively not only live longer, but also report higher levels of life satisfaction. It's as if asking for help is a superfood for the soul. But what if you find it hard to ask for help? Don't worry, you're not alone. Many of us grew up with the idea that asking for help is a sign of weakness. But as the philosopher Seneca once said, part of the cure is the will to be cured. Start with small steps. Ask for help with simple things, like reaching something on a high shelf or reading a label with small print. As you become more comfortable, you'll be able to ask for help with more important matters. And remember, asking for help not only benefits you, it also gives others the opportunity to feel useful and valuable. It's a gift that you give and receive at the same time. As we reflect on the importance of maintaining our autonomy, an intriguing question arises. What is more valuable, leaving behind a large financial inheritance or an example of dignity? The answer could change how you view your future and that of your loved ones. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a book. You've written chapters full of adventures, challenges, and triumphs. Now, you're in the final pages, thinking about how you want to be remembered. Will it be for the bank account you leave behind or for the way you lived your last years? The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "Life, if you know how to use it, is long." And he was right. It's not about how many years we live, but how we live them. A true legacy is not measured in numbers, but in the impact we leave on others. Take the case of Mrs. Elena, an 80-year-old woman who decided to learn to paint after retiring. Her grandchildren didn't inherit a fortune, but they did inherit an invaluable lesson about perseverance and passion. "Grandma," her youngest granddaughter said, "when I grow up, I want to be like you." Isn't that more valuable than any sum of money? Or think about Mr. Alberto, who at 75 became a volunteer at a community kitchen. His son says, Dad taught me that it's never too late to help others. That lesson is worth more than any inheritance. But beware, we're not saying that financial planning isn't important. As Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. The key is finding a balance between financial security and the emotional wealth we leave behind. Psychologist Erik Erikson talked about generativity in old age, the need to contribute to future generations. It's not just about having children, but about leaving a positive impact on the world. And what better impact than the example of a life well lived? Now get ready for a laugh. Our friend from the book club, Mr. Ramon, decided that his legacy would be humor. Every day he shares a new joke with his grandchildren on WhatsApp. "I'm leaving them a legacy of laughter," he says with a sly grin. And trust me, that's worth more than gold. But legacy isn't just about what we leave behind. It's also about how we leave it. The way we face the challenges of old age can be a powerful lesson for our loved ones. As the poet Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Imagine the impact you can have on your children and grandchildren by showing them how to age with grace, dignity, and an indomitable spirit. That, my friend, is a legacy that transcends generations. Dr. Robert Butler, a pioneer in the field of gerontology, coined the term life review, referring to the natural process of reflection that occurs in old age. Why not turn that review into an opportunity to share wisdom and values with your loved ones? And speaking of wisdom, have you considered writing your memoirs? You don't need to be a famous writer. Your experiences, lessons learned, and even your mistakes can be an invaluable treasure for future generations. As historian Will Durant once said, "Education is the transmission of civilization." But remember, the best legacy is one that is built day by day. Don't wait until you're on your deathbed to share your wisdom. Live in a way that inspires others, showing them that life can be an exciting adventure until the very end. And if you worry about not having great achievements to leave as a legacy, remember the words of writer Ralph Waldo Emerson. To leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Have you ever thought about how you want your final years to be? Life is a journey, and old age can be its most exciting chapter. Remember, we're all going to die, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the ride. Independence in old age is a gift for both you and your children. Plan today for a better tomorrow. Save, take care of your health, and cultivate meaningful relationships. Don't wait until it's too late to take control of your life. If you're going through a tough time, don't hesitate to share your situation. We're here to listen and support you. Remember, your old age is yours to write. What story do you want to tell? Share your experiences or plans in the comments. And if you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Life is a gift," so I know who the champions are that made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content like this in the future. Share this video with your loved ones so they can start applying this wisdom today. And if you want to support me even more, become an exclusive channel member. It would help me a lot. You can also download my new ebook from the link in the pinned comment. Thanks so much for all your support. Now click on this video and keep filling your mind with wisdom. See you next time.